Let's
Yes.
chat about the elephant in the room. Why don't you start?
Oh, heavens, where do we begin with that one? No, I mean, look, it is literally the only thing anybody's talking about in our space. You know, this Compass Anywhere deal has shook the entire industry down to its bones. And a lot of people I've spent since this happened, Lord, only a week ago, or maybe a few days more, I have spent more time on Zooms and conference calls and webinars listening and talking to anybody who wants to talk about it. And it's all anybody wants to talk about, right now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
So,
what's incredible to me is I don't think people saw it coming. They saw
mhm,
potentially a sale of Berkshire Hathaway coming. They saw,
mhm,
other players in the industry. I sent a LinkedIn post this week that got like 1,000 views, I think, by
yeah,
now, about Douglas Elliman may be in play, Exit Realty may be in play. And then all of a sudden, Compass is buying anywhere for 1.6 billion. And you think, I didn't see it coming. And so
no,
when I talk to my clients, they're like, what does this mean for us? And of course, Mark, you and I know the answer. It's like you need scale. Like you
yeah,
need scale, man. You
yeah.
you are you need to amortize all those expenses
Mhm.
across as many agents as you can competently manage.
Yeah. Yeah, it's even in some sense it's even worse than that. Not worse, but it's even more convoluted than that because look, if you and I'm not going to say anything you and everybody who's listening to this doesn't already know to a certain degree, but if you just say broke the industry down in tiers, let's call it, let's just use agents as a benchmark. So you would have had Remax, KW, and the Anywhere brands would have been in that first tier, 100,000 agents plus, blah blah blah. Compass, EXP, Berkshire would have been maybe two, and then you're down to the Hannah, Hobie and Real and Redfin and United.
Riker, yeah,
And then right. And this you just keep moving in that scale.
yeah,
Compass now, by every measure, is the largest by far. And if you now shuffle that and you say, okay, now tier two really becomes Remax, KW, and probably EXP, although they're not quite as big. Those three companies could merge together and still not be as big as what Compass is about to become.
yeah. Hence the comment, the elephant in the room. It's huge.
Yeah,
It's massive,
yeah,
and it fundamentally changes the conversations around private listings versus public
yeah.
listings, about the coming soon debate, all of
Hmm.
the method of marketing to your prospective
Yeah,
buyer
yeah.
is under debate right now.
Hmm. Well, and to what's even more interesting to me is if you really look at if you when you start drilling down into the numbers, other than a few select key markets, Compass still isn't. There's no version where they're going to get looked at by everybody saying, well, no, the feds are going to step in and probably squash. It's like, no, they're not. They're only roughly 16% ish of the total market. So no, the feds are going to let this go through and they're not even going to blink. Now, are there going to be certain markets that maybe they have to sort of make some provisions on? Probably San Francisco, New York, those sort of things. But this is going to happen. There's no version where this stops.
And the crazy part, Mark, is God help us again if the tort lawyers get involved. So,
Oh, yeah.
like, it's just,
Yeah.
we shouldn't laugh. It's brutal. So,
No, I
let's
know.
talk about practical strategies for people trying to run their brokerages, people looking at mergers and
Yeah.
acquisitions. I'm seeing a lot of people as a result of the Compass Anywhere deal
Hmm.
calling you, calling me and saying, I need to do something.
Hmm.
I'm, not big enough. I'm not enjoying running my brokerage. I need a change. Can you
Hmm.
sell me? I've got buyers who are saying, I've got opportunities to
Yeah.
purchase. How do I do that? How do I become bigger? Is I assume you're seeing the same.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, every buyer in our buyers network has called me over the last week and a half, 10 days, and that's, all the major brands by and large. And every one of them said, look, we need to grow like right now, and we're willing to
Yes.
dump money into it. And I don't care if these are PE backed groups. I don't care if they're publicly funded or, excuse me, stock, funded
Yeah.
groups, what private, whatever. Everybody came to us and said, we need to buy right now. And
Yeah.
so the sellers, to your point, and rightly so, if you're not, I said this 2 years ago, if you're 100 agents or less, and you hate to put it in such blunt terms, but it's almost like dead man walking. And this has just exacerbated that to the point where, I mean, we've got groups that are coming that's only 10 or 15 or 20, and they're like, do you think we can grow? No, you can't.
No, it's so true. We just did a 44 agent deal and an 87 agent deal, to your point, where they sold because it's very, very difficult to make money at that number right
Mhm.
now, and it's
Yeah,
going to become worse.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah, the mark what
what are
okay.
you seeing as far as deal structures for stuff like that? Like what I'll tell you what we've seen, if they're profitable, Mark, they're still getting a chunk down, which is
Mhm.
nice because
Absolutely.
as the business owner, you want to
Mhm.
receive something for the legacy you created and the value that you've got. But it's
Absolutely.
no longer those lucrative deals where you're cutting a check for
No.
100%. Like those are gone.
Oh no, those have been gone for several years. I mean, I haven't seen a deal in 2, maybe 3 years where there was just a check written. That those days are just long gone. So people, brokers who think they're ready to, get out for whatever reason. It doesn't really matter, but whatever reason, you're not going to get out with a check. So we can just set that
Yeah.
pan to the side. It's not going to happen. So then the question, to your point, is what are the deal structures? Now, you and I have had this conversation, and I'll say it out loud and proud. I really do everything I can not to let an earnout go past 3 years.
Yeah.
I've
And
done
I
it.
love that. I
Yeah.
love that because as the when you're representing the seller, it
Hmm.
the uncertainty just
Yeah.
dramatically increases every year that
Yeah.
passes, and you
Yep.
want to make sure they get paid for what
Right.
they've built.
Yeah.
And so I loved your suggestion when we had a conversation before that you do, and we recently implemented this, a third on closing, a third in the first year, a third in the second year.
Yeah.
That's a deal that we literally just did
Yeah.
in Wyoming, and it's been perfect.
Yeah. No, and we just did two in that same general structure. The difference was this is one of the publicly traded guys, so there was some stock involved, blah, blah, blah. But effectively, the deal terms were kind of the same to what you just said. So, that's my rule of thumb. Now, have I had to break that from time to time for one reason or another? Sure. I mean, this is business and it is what it is. But that's the hard and fast that I really try and make sure we live with because to your point, everybody after 2 or 3 years is starting to get stressed out. The seller's going, I'm never going to get my money. The buyer's tired, sick of writing checks. No, just let's get it done clean. Don't, we've seen some, I got to tell you, Norma, it's some of the deal I had that just kind of fell apart because the buyer came to me and the deal was so convoluted. Even I didn't understand what he was trying to do. And I've seen these a thousand times.
Mark, if you didn't understand
Yeah.
it, we've got a major
Yeah.
problem.
I get this 4-page LOI framework, and I'm like, what the hell is this? I mean, even I was like, wait, I couldn't even put it on a chart to figure out what the total acquisition cost was. So, anyway, I politely called the buyer back and said, try again and send me something that's less than 1 page because
Yeah.
this is insane. I'm not even
No,
going to present this to my client. And, we're pretty hard and fast again about making sure whatever we get, we send to our clients so they can understand where things are headed.
yeah.
And it's just for transparency. But there have been occasions there's like, I'm not even going to present this. There's no point. It's either embarrassing or I don't even understand it. And that was one of those, no, try again. We can't do it. So anyway,
We
it's,
have we have one right now in Maryland where it's 10% down and the payout is over 2.5 years for the remainder, which again speaks to the urgency of the seller to sell
yeah,
for health reasons. So
yeah,
that's, you have to get creative when there's certain situations in play.
right.
We've also got one where it started out as a sale mandate, and you've probably done this too. And all of a sudden, it's an independent, and all of a sudden, one of the brands came and said, "We're going to convert you, and we're going to give you some cash," and that became an interesting conversation.
Really?
Yeah. So
Yeah. I
there's
had I had one of those in Maryland myself here a couple of years back. Something
Yeah,
similar.
well, that one's down in Texas, and you look and you say, okay, if the metrics work,
Yeah.
we're open to anything. But as the
Yeah.
seller of any, as you said, anything under 100, and even we've got like 125 to 200, you do as well, where
Mhm.
they're even finding it difficult. It's that
Yeah.
whole tipping point where you say, okay, do we start acquiring other brokerages so we
Yeah.
get up to 200, 300, 400 agents, which makes you a behemoth? Or do we
Right.
say, let's sell to somebody else and let them do that?
Right. And then the inevitable question always becomes, well, if it was that easy to get to 2 or 300, why didn't you do it already?
Yeah,
That's always the next question.
yeah,
I've had more brokers come to me and say that, Norman, I know you have too. Well, I'm at 110 or I'm at 120. If I can just get to 175 or 200, it's like, well, how long you been working on it? Oh, 5 years. Really? And in this market, you think that's the time you're going to expand?
Yeah.
Come on. And guys, there has to be a reality check at some point. And I'm not trying to be mean or rude or anything. It's just there are certain realities that a lot of brokers, I don't want to say they bury their hand in the sand. It's nothing like
Well,
that. It's
but it's
just,
because their baby, Mark. It's their
I
baby.
get it.
And the agents are like family, and their heart and soul is in that business. And
I
so they
understand.
desperately want to make it work. But to your point, it's so hard to recruit agents one at a time.
Yeah.
Like you work your heart out to bring in five and
Hmm.
seven leave. And
Yeah.
and that happens all the time right now.
Yeah.
Or you work like crazy for a year and you bring in 15, and then your biggest team of 10 agents leaves.
Yeah. Right.
So it's I agree with your advice that if you're 100 or less, you should be looking at sale right now. And the
Mhm.
nice thing is there's buyers.
Yeah. The buy again, now we're back to, the behemoth part of it, which is the buyers are willing. They want to get into some, again, if let's use that tier example, they want to go from tier 5 to tier 4. The buyers really do want to, and if you're a seller and you're willing to look at your business realistically and you think now's the time, my God, pick up the phone. I don't, you
Yeah.
guys are great. We do a good job, I think, and there's a few other very well-placed people out there that can help. And you just got to be willing to open that door. And by the way, I'm going to say this because this is relevant to you and I and Wayne and all that. But we've had plenty of brokers, even in the last, even before the Compass thing kind of came through, but just saying, look, I just want to know what my company's worth. Okay,
Yes.
we can do a rapid valuation. We can just throw a number at least to you.
Yeah.
Now, are they disappointed sometimes? Sure. Are they like joyfully happy sometimes? Yes, absolutely. And there's a lot of in between, but having at least something to work with, you gotta have a starting off point. So
Yeah, oh, I agree. In fact, if you're going to run a professional sales process, your rapid valuation tool is brilliant for like a snapshot. But
yeah,
I think if you're going to run a professional process, it's so helpful to have a valuation report that you can
exactly.
supply to the prospective purchasers, and then
Yeah,
they know exactly what they're buying. Is it luxury? Is it mid-market? Is it lower market?
yep,
What sort of agent mix do we have? What sort of growth have we seen, or
right.
contraction have we seen? So no, I think the valuation report is a great starting point.
Yeah.
Let's change topics for a second. What are
Okay,
you
hit me.
seeing in the luxury market? Because
Oh,
we're seeing that traditional split luxury market in
mhm.
tremendous demand right now.
Yep.
And there's buyers in the marketplace that want the cream only, right? They're not
Hmm.
interested in a brokerage that does 15% at the bottom, 15% at the top,
Hmm.
and sort of the
Right.
bulk in the midpoint. They
Yeah.
want that cream, and they're looking to
Yeah.
buy the luxury piece. What do you
Well,
think about
yeah, absolutely 100% spot on. Totally agree. And what's interesting, I'm going to throw one more caveat in there. So if you think about, what I would call the three main players, you've got Christie's, Sotheby's, and EV, right? Those have always been the traditional, high-end luxury guys. Okay, fine. Well, the problem or not problem is Christie's and now Sotheby's are owned by Compass. Okay, so really, and who knows what Robert's going to do? I mean, I made the argument when this whole thing first happened, or within a few days, I was having a conversation with somebody, and I just said point blank, Robert, in my opinion, over time, you're going to watch all those old brands just disappear. I think he's going to slowly convert them into Compass. I could be wrong, but it just seems like that's the direction he's headed. Okay, with that being said, so let's pretend for 5 seconds that Sotheby's and Christie's eventually dissolved. So what you're really left with is EV and Compass. Now there's a couple new players, Aperture, which is one of Robert
Robert
Palmer's
Palmer?
groups,
Yep.
right? Yeah, it's got kind of that spin-off from LPT. And then I've been hearing rumors that Real is starting to sort of spin off into some directions that are more straight up luxury. So now we might have four brands to work with again. And the Real thing, who knows? We'll see if that really happens. And there's a few other small players, regional players. But the point is that yes, two might go away, but we might get two back. And so suddenly, particularly with the new guys that are trying to, compete, they're a great opportunity as buyers if you're willing to look at those models.
And it's interesting. I'm going to take the other side of that. I think Compass loses if they change the brand of Sotheby's and Christie's. Because if you think about it, Mark, the average consumer has a certain view of Compass, right?
Hmm.
they have a different view of Christie's and a different view of Sotheby's. And so
Agreed.
I agree with the underlying premise, which is if you're in the luxury space as a seller,
Mm-hmm.
there are 4 or 5 options available right now.
Mm-hmm.
If I were Compass, I would promote the heck out of the Christie's brand and the Sotheby's brand because it resonates with the consumers. It's like, you know how you and I always chat about Remax and how
Yeah.
challenging that business model sometimes is.
Mm-hmm.
Their underlying strength is that it resonates with consumers.
No, I agree. So,
Yeah.
okay, so I'm going to take that as maybe the side different direction. This is more posing a what if. So let's say of the 7 brands that Anywhere represents, or now Compass, assuming, are you going to make that same argument for the remaining 5? It'll say they keep Sotheby's, Christie's is a separate purchase. You think ERA, BHG, who else is in there? C21. You think they survive, or do you think Robert eventually rolls them in?
I it's way outside of my pay grade, my man.
Well, I mean, it's outside of all of our pay grades. We don't know what
I,
Robert Evans thinking. We just think, we're just outsiders looking in, going, we're trying to. This is literally our job, trying to anticipate the market and figure
yes.
out where we can put the right people in the right space, yada yada yada. I mean, this is
Yeah,
what we get paid for,
and help our
and
clients
help our clients. Exactly.
find the right cultural fit.
Right.
So to try to answer that, I think the luxury market, because it's so attractive right now, because the metrics are just so different, right?
Right.
Like I'm seeing brokerages still getting 30-70 splits on luxury stuff and doing
Yeah.
that full suite of
Yeah.
services that are phenomenal for their agents. Like
Yeah.
it's almost that concierge level service where you don't book online and give an hour's notice. Like this is
Right.
a 4-day, 5-day, week-long
Right.
process
Right.
because you need security to go through the houses. But I
Yeah.
think that market, Mark, is so lucrative that maintaining the Christie's and the Sotheby's makes sense.
Okay.
Your comment about the others is, again, it's way outside my pay grade, but it seems like it's more um I guess what would be the advantage of keeping them as separate brands versus rolling them all into Compass? The industry knows that Compass owns them all. I don't
Mhm.
think the consumer does.
But now you're back to, does the consumer care?
Yeah, no, it's and I think there's a certainly the brands we're talking about would argue
They're important.
strenuously
Of course.
that the consumer cares and that there is a loyalty to that brand. So it'll be one of those value analysis that Compass
Yeah.
will have to do. I assume they're creating tons of synergy with the back end,
I
uh,
would, I
but it'll
think, yeah. No, I
but
think that,
the front facing might stay the same for the foreseeable future because of that value of brand. I don't know.
and again, I'll lay a steak dinner on it with you, but I think over the next 4 or 5 or 6 years, particularly
It's
if I
all
look at the
Compass.
small, yeah, yeah, I think they're all going to eventually, as those franchises begin to roll and run out, and then those brokerages are forced to make a decision, and that the ones who decide, I think, are just going to get rolled in. Now, to your point, I hadn't pondered the idea of the luxury side of it, so there could be some validity to that, and I see your logic. I just, you know,
So how do I earn this steak dinner? Is it if the other 5 roll
let's
in
see.
or if all
To,
7?
1st of October. So I tell you what, October something of 2028, we'll have this conversation again. We'll figure
Okay.
out how many of them are left.
All right. That
Something
sounds
like
like
that.
a plan. Talk to me about your view on traditional brokerages versus flat fee versus the sort of percentage ones, online ones. Like where do you see there's so much
Yeah.
differentiation in the market right now for an agent. I,
Yeah.
I I mean I see the traditional surviving in the luxury space for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
Interesting your views on what happens to the rest of the market.
I have said this on now for a few years. I think there is a space for what I will call the 3 legs. So we'll call it traditional, whether that's a franchise, but a traditional split model, the 100% model, and what I call the downline or digital model. And those are each attractive to agents for a variety of reasons. And so they each have validity in how they approach the marketplace. I think in some sense, what's going to happen is the technology behind the scenes is going to sort of morph into a more universal type of a thing. And again, Compass has got their back end, which I've seen, and it's impressive. Remax has got theirs, Fathom has got theirs, Hobie's got hit, like all that good stuff. But I think the individual legs of that stool are going to remain relatively consistent, and there's going to be variation even within each of those. So, for example, a split model on a luxury is going to be different than a split model on a more,
Yes.
mid-grade type of thing. So there's
Yes.
going to be some variations, but that split model leg is going to continue to move forward, I suspect, relatively unabated. Same way with the downline, same way with the 100%ers. I
So
do I do think that they're going to level in some sense because right now, traditional models are still the lion's share, let's call it,
yeah,
of how agents, get into this industry. And the other two have been slowly creeping ahead. And I think they're going to probably flatten. And the agents are going to then pick the model they like first, and then decide out of that cluster what company best fits my desires or something along those lines. And I suspect that's where this is going.
I like that. And are you thinking bricks and mortar become more relevant or less? And the reason I ask that is we have some brokers that are spending money renovating their spaces to
Mhm.
make them attractive for agents to come into the office regularly again. Obviously, COVID, Mark, we saw people
Oh,
completely
yeah.
abandon the offices
Yeah.
entirely. And it's fascinating to me that bricks and mortar is still resonating with a certain group of agents out there where they want
Yeah.
that collaboration. They want that in-person sort of encouragement and training.
Right. I think that's going to be really dependent on two factors, the territory you're in. So I think there's always going to be a reason to have a brick and mortar space in, let's say, a city like Sarasota, for example, where you get a lot of tourists. And they're wanting to see, maybe they want to move to Florida, or maybe, who knows, LA or New York or whatever. There is a valid reason to have a brick and mortar place where you can meet with your client and sit down because there's a lot of tourism, for example, a
And
lot of
especially
influx.
the demographic, to your point
Yes.
there, the older demographic likes
Yes.
to touch and feel and
Yep.
go.
But I think those younger agents, they couldn't care less. They're used to buying everything online. If it isn't a box dropping on their doorstep, they don't care. And so for them, the digital is going to be the future for the most part. There are going to be obvious exceptions to that. So to those brokers who want to go spend $100,000 or $200,000 to renovate their office, I would say if you're in, downtown Sheboygan, don't do it. Don't spend your money. I mean, you're just, it's money burned up, in my opinion. If you're in San Francisco or LA or, again, Miami, yeah, I mean, take a look at realistically what you're thinking about. And if there's a reason that a customer would come in and touch that building, great, bring it on.
Yeah.
Um,
So
it's,
it's what
it's
let
really
me
about and I got to go back to this. It's really about the customers. I mean, some of
it,
the agents may like it, but if the customers never show up, well, who the hell cares?
but and I'm going to take the other side of that. The a couple of our owners have been spending money to create spaces that are sleek and attractive and welcoming to the agents, even though
Okay.
they don't have any customer traffic. And I find it fascinating. And what I've noticed is their agent pool grows as a result. So it's but I agree with you. It's not the time to be buying a brand new building to put
Yeah.
your brokerage in
Right.
because unless you've got 50 other tenants to help defray those rent
Yeah.
costs and mortgage costs,
Hmm.
where before, Mark, I think it was brilliant of brokers to buy their own building and
Hmm.
rent their own space. Like it's a great
Yep.
way to create a different stream of wealth separate from the business
Exactly.
group. But right now, I'd be very hesitant if a client says to me, I'm going to buy a really big building for
Yeah.
my brokerage.
Well, I am sure you guys have seen this as well, and certainly we have, and particularly in the last probably year, where a lot of our brokers that we're getting ready to, sell, have all come to us and say, I have this building, I need to sell it as well.
Yes.
Great.
Oh, yeah.
Now,
Bundle. Oh,
yeah,
100%.
bundle it all together.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Now, we're not a
100%.
real estate company. We can't legally do that, but I can certainly point you in the right direction. But you're also a real estate agent. You should know how to sell a building. But anyway, but yeah, where they're going, I can't afford to own this building anymore for one reason or another. So, again, you and I, we can quibble maybe about why you should or shouldn't do it, but I think be very judicious in your space
Yeah.
size, what
Yeah.
your allocation of your rent is. I mean, knock that bill down as far as you can. And if you need
Yes.
to have some small space for your agents, fine, bring it on, I guess. But I think over the next 10 or 15 years, the older generation agents are going to opt out. And the next generation coming up are just don't care. They're so digital, they don't know any better.
Are
So,
you also seeing, we've done two deals recently where the business and the building were sold together.
mhm. Yeah, we've got several. We've got several right now that are on that same basic thing.
And the
Yeah,
beautiful part of it is they can finance the building easier than the business. And so
exactly.
they increase the value of the building, decrease the value of business, and finance as much as they can of it. It's a win-win.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But now we're back to you got to have that building in place. Don't buy a building right now for the love of God, just because
Exactly.
you think you're going to defer
Exactly.
some payment 5 years from now or whatever. So
Exactly. You don't
yeah,
want to buy a building right now, but if you
yeah,
have one, it's a great way to finance the sale of the business and the
yep,
building and get more upfront for the business.
exactly,
Yeah, no, I
exactly.
like that. Very
Yeah.
good. Any other topics on your agenda?
I don't know what's going on. We got a lot of stuff. I mean, you and I are going to be. I don't know. Maybe we shouldn't make the announcement. No, never mind. I won't make this announcement. You and I are going to be together. Let's put it like that. Towards the beginning of next
Well,
year.
in addition to that steak dinner that you're buying
Oh,
me.
is that wait, that's not till 2028. What are we doing? No, but I just think, look, there are so many groups right now in our space who are
Yeah.
working together. You and I, obviously, there's a bunch of others. So, if
Yeah,
you're in that
collaboration,
collaboration,
and
partnerships, yeah, I
and
mean,
finding you and I always try to find that win-win. And I think that's critically important right now is
yeah,
if
I
you
do
have a
too.
seller and a buyer, you got to find where that intersection is, where it creates
Yeah,
that mutually beneficial deal. Because they're
yeah,
not gonna, it's not like you're buying a car from somebody and you don't
right,
ever go back to that person. It's
right.
an ongoing relationship as one person sells what they've created to another and wants to see that legacy
Yeah.
preserved.
Well, you heard me say this before. It's a marriage. At least in the short term, it's a
Yeah.
three-year marriage. So you better
Or it's
like
a
the person you
long-term
just got in bed
dating
with.
relationship, Mark. I
Yeah.
don't know if up in Canada, where I am based and Wade's
Yeah.
based in Florida. In Canada, we tend to stay with our partners longer than 3 years. So
You're waiting to get it better for a while now. So,
that's right. So I think it's a long-term dating relationship,
I
the
like
two
it.
to 3 to 4 year relationship that you set up when you have a seller and a buyer do a deal.
I wish I could get people to understand that sometimes. We still have
Yeah.
brokers, I'm sure you do too, who go, okay, I'm just going to get out of here. And it's like, no, you're not.
No,
It doesn't
that's a
work.
great point. Actually, that's a great topic. Is that they have to stick around.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
there's just no other way to do it. There's no
Right.
ability to step back when you sell. You can step back, but you have to be there. And your
Absolutely.
presence has to be felt, and you have to assist with the transition of agents and the
Yeah.
keeping them comfortable and feeling good for I think at least the first 12 months after sale. Is that what you're
Yeah,
thinking?
we've done a couple where there was a mandatory, say 3 month or 4 month, like a short term mandatory you have to stay. But then typically in that scenario, the broker will stay on as an agent type of a thing. So they'll relinquish
Yes.
maybe all of those front end responsibilities with the agents, but they'll still be floating around. And the agents will always come up to them and go, what do you think? What's happening? Because they're used to people get used to what they know type of a thing until that full cycle has gone through. But there's other times where they've mandated even in the LOIs, no, you got to be here a year. Like it's
Yeah.
just the way it is. So
And I like it because when you think about how much time the broker has owned that business and been coming in, like you and I both have brokers in their late 70s, mid 80s, even early 90s, I think you
yeah,
told me,
yeah.
who come into the office every
Oh
day.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
incredible. So you want that to continue because that's what the agents like, that's what they're
Yeah,
comfortable with, and also that's what the owners used to. So
right.
it's that
Yeah,
balancing act of you want the presence to be there, but the owner is selling because they don't want the burden anymore.
exactly, exactly. And I
Yeah.
think
So
that's the best way to think about it is
yeah,
for a
it's
lot of these
nice.
brokers, they want to be there. They just want to get that pressure off their plate, that
Yeah,
daily
because
grind.
it's we had a couple recently whose children are in extracurricular varsity sports and they want to be going and visiting them, and you can't do that. Like you
Yeah,
cannot leave the business behind.
right.
A real
No,
estate brokerage is it's a manacle, right? You're
yes,
manacled to the business
absolutely.
because you have to be there for your agents. You have to make sure that anytime they have a question or a problem, you solve it for them or you help
Yeah.
them solve it. So
Yeah.
there's
No,
a
it's it's
tremendous
fun.
relief upon sale, right? But it's a
Yeah.
transition, it's a change.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you would say that because I literally just had a conversation with a broker this week, and his comment to me was, he just said, Mark, I just had my first grandkid, and I want to go be a
Yeah.
grandpa. Now, I've been
Yes.
talking to this guy off and on for 2 years,
Yeah.
because he'd kind of thought about it. Nope, don't want to do it yet. No, we're doing fine, blah, blah, blah. And here comes along the grandkid, and he goes, I want to be a grandpa. That's my new life.
I love that.
Yeah, bring it on. That's what
I
we're
love
going to do.
that because he's spent his lifetime building this business and now it's time to transfer it to somebody else to continue to
Mhm.
grow it while he
Mhm.
actually enjoys himself.
Exactly right. And if you can keep that in mind as a broker and you're ready to sell, you're going to win. It's a win. It's a win-win for everybody.
And he's going to come into the office regularly
He
because,
wants to stay. He wants to be an agent.
yeah,
He makes a
perfect.
crap ton of money. He's a really good
Yeah,
agent. So he's not going anywhere. He just wants the flexibility to go, oh, grandbaby, I don't even know if it's a boy or girl, but grandbaby,
yes,
is got shots, or they're going to talk, take their first
yes.
walk, or they're just know they're going to say a word any moment, so he's going to be right there for it. Okay,
Yeah,
good on him,
he doesn't
man.
want to be tethered. He doesn't want to be
Exactly.
tethered to the business anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, I agree. That is a strong motivator.
It is. It is. So, what else? Is that it? Is that everything in the industry? We solve all the world's problems, at least
We
in this
definitely have
industry?
not done that. That would take a century, as far as we can tell, and it's
Be a
still.
lot longer video.
That's right. Every next generation says it's worse than it was before.
Uh,
Let me think about anything else you and I want to cover. Oh, I've got one. I had a client say to me, "I don't want to give a personal guarantee. What other options are there, like a buyer?" And
yeah.
I've done some videos about stuff like this, but it's that whole piece of you can, guarantee a small portion of it to give them
Right.
comfort. You can have your company guarantee it if you've got a good
Right.
corporate covenant. You can do some sort of unregistered mortgage if there's real estate
Right.
involved. So
Right.
there's a bunch of creative ways to get around that, because I don't know about you, but when I'm talking to a buyer, I
Yeah.
hate the idea of them entering into a personal guarantee.
Oh, you and me both.
But
Um,
as the seller, you want to make sure they get paid. And of course, we
exactly.
hear horror stories about people promising to pay and then not. I mean,
Yeah.
there was big litigation in the Midwest on, I think, a $2.5 million brokerage. The guy paid 200 grand down and then didn't pay anything else. So
Right.
it's that balancing act between a seller making sure they get paid and a buyer not
Right.
wanting to give the personal guarantee.
Yeah, that's a catch 22 in a hard way. And of course, then you can toss in the example of okay, go get an SBA or something, but those take, God knows how long, and that just slows the whole process. Norma, there is no easy fix on that one. What I tend to say to all of our clients, and probably buyers as well to a certain degree, is most of the guardrails are going to be in favor of the buyer initially, because they're the ones that have to put the money down. They got to make sure the agents don't scatter to the winds, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. Almost all of the guardrails that are put in place from, let's call it, a year on or something, are in favor of the seller, because now it's their money that's on the line. So every provision has to be in sort of those terms. Now, again, there's a million ways to skin that cat, but in the end, if you look at an LOI and you go, all the guardrails are one-sided or the other, or
Yeah,
they're off,
yeah,
maybe off cycle to that,
yeah.
you got some red flags you need to look at.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. You and I always try to make the deals, the incentives are aligned, right? You
Right.
want the seller and the buyer to be both trying to grow the business,
Mm-hmm.
keep certain profitability numbers, keep certain gross margin numbers. You want everybody's sort of actions aligned the
Right.
same,
Yeah, no,
ideally.
exactly. Yeah, ideally, exactly. And this is, to be fair, I mean, this is why, again, if you're a 100 agent brokerage and you're trying to buy another 100 agent brokerage, you may have to think about that. There may be some misalignments in monies, in,
Yes. Yeah.
compensation. Like, there's a myriad of things. Now, if you're a
And
100 agent
you and
brokerage,
I have done partnerships and mergers in that
yes,
situation that ultimately result in one of them taking out the other. But it's a
eventually.
progression. Yeah.
Right, right.
Because again, you've got two equal things coming
Yeah,
together and one buying the other. That's where, as we said, if a personal guarantee is needed and the buyer's prepared to give it, maybe it gives comfort to the seller that they'll actually get paid. Because you hate to think that you and I are ever structuring a deal where both parties don't get what they bargained for.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, the rule of thumb in our company, we say this constantly is, 2 years from now, we want to go back to those clients and go, did it work out? Yep. Everybody's happy still, or 3 years, whatever. And that's what we're shooting for now.
Well, and that's what
We've
the
been more
testimonials.
successful than not, but
Yeah.
nothing's guaranteed. So.
No, and that's what the testimonials on the website say, right? It's like Mark did a great job. Norma did, she did a
Yeah,
decent
exactly.
job. That's
The
what you
reason they
want.
give us those testimonials. Exactly
Yes,
right,
is they
man.
actually got their money.
Yeah,
And it's
exactly.
also interesting, I find, once someone sells, how ideally they align with the new buyer and they try to improve that buyer's business. And that when you and I see stuff like that, it's so great because like your example of the grandbaby, he's able to step back from the business, spend a lot more time with his grandson or granddaughter, but yet still have involvement, still support, still grow, still provide that cultural alignment that the agents want.
Yeah, no, exactly. So when it's done right and it's done with a professional, don't sell your own brokers. I can't say that enough. Don't sell your own brokers.
You know what's crazy though, Mark, is brokers know better than anybody not to sell your own house, right? It's like you see it every day. People trying to
It's
sell their own
tattooed on their
houses.
foreheads.
Right. It's so common. And you know what I think it is? I think it's that your firm and our firm and Steve Murray's firm and like a couple others, we don't advertise to the extent that the real estate brokerage industry advertises. And so people don't know that we run these fabulous sales processes and that we get better results than if they try to do it themselves.
Yeah. But here's another interesting one. I'm gonna slightly shift on this theme, and I want to get your feedback. I cannot believe how many quote unquote business broker companies there are in every major city in probably Canada and certainly the United States. And some broker will take it to a Yahoo business broker that doesn't know jack squat about the real estate industry. You cannot believe how many times we've had to take those projects on because the business broker just muddles it up, makes it 10 times worse.
No confidentiality. Everybody and their brother knows that the broker is trying to sell. Like what I find really critical, and I know you do the same, is maintaining confidentiality.
Oh,
absolutely.
absolutely.
And the beauty of you or I helping them is, yes, we make a fee, 100%, but the seller comes to us, but we don't have to tell the prospective buyer who the seller is.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Whereas if you, as the broker owner, approach someone,
right.
First of all, they know immediately that you're looking to sell, and secondly, they're not subject to an NDA, so they can tell everybody and their brother.
Yeah.
And
then to
all
make
of a
matters
sudden,
worse,
the agents go.
yes, exactly. They'll come in and try and swipe your age and all that stuff. But then the business broker companies that don't specialize in this industry, they don't know squat about what we do.
Yeah.
I mean, Norma, I'm telling you, I'm dealing with one right now here in Florida. It is driving me bananas. This business brokerage, a business broker, just a generic, they sell Chinese food restaurants and pots and pans, distribute.
Gas stations.
And I'm like, oh God, yeah. And I'm like, what in the hell have you guys done? Like, this is insane. First of all, to your point, everybody and their grandmother now knows about it because they don't know who to call. They don't even know who to call to get the ball started. And then when they call the wrong people, it just spreads to the wind. It's like, stop using business brokers. Look,
no, there's 100%. And along the same lines, it's not about preserving your and my business. It's about them preserving the value of their business.
Exactly.
It's tragic when you see someone try to sell their own business and confidentiality gets blown. The agents find out that you're trying to sell, and all of a sudden your business is destroyed.
Yeah, exactly. And and it's not like we can't be found on the internet. Good Lord. I mean, between you, me, Steve, Wayne, Tyrone, I mean, if there's not very many of us that do this sort of thing, it's not hard to find us. Type in real estate business broker or something, it's like, good Lord, Google's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, no, it's very true. That is a good message.
A good way to end. All right.
A good way to end.